This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
Today, we are going to learn the secrets to living a healthy and happy life at every age.
And Amy isn't talking about finding the fountain of youth either.
No, we're going to meet Dr. Gladys McGarey, who at the age of 102 is still teaching people how to navigate life with grace. Welcome to Believe in People, Dr. Gladys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have a lot to dive into in such a short period of time. But I first want to let listeners and viewers know that you are the founder of the American Holistic Medicine Association, really a visionary and a pioneer in this field. And you are 102 years young, and we're honored that we can learn from you. Before we get into your book, you wrote a book a couple of years ago called The Well-Lived Life, where you share the 6 secrets to health and happiness at every age. We're going to talk about in a moment. But first, I can't imagine what it must have been like to practice medicine as a woman in a male-dominant field at the beginning of your career. Did you feel you were being heard?
I was called all kinds of names, particularly since I wasn't really pushing the kind of medicine that was being taught. I mean, I'd grown up in a family of missionary parents, medical doctors in the jungles of North India, and I watched medicine being practiced as an act of love more than modalities, because we didn't, my parents had a trunk that had some things in it, but mostly it was their presence with the people who had no access really to medical work, and the way they interacted with life as it was presented to them, because each one of us is different. I don't care if you're in the middle of the bush up there in Canada or the middle of the jungle in India. You're the same kind of a being. You're a human being. And so the approach that my parents took, and that I accepted when I was 2 years old, that I was a doctor, because my dolls were always getting sick and I had to take care of them. So my sister wouldn't let me play with hers because things happened to my dolls. But anyway, there was that kind of awareness that this is what I was supposed to be doing.
Do you find in this day and age that perhaps we've gotten away from that a bit in the way that we practice medicine? I mean, there are tremendous miracles and strides being made in the world of medicine, but what about the human contact part that you seem to hold so dearly?
Well, I do well with stories, okay? Let me tell you a story that I think will help with that. My oldest son is a retired orthopedic surgeon. And when he came through Phoenix, ready to go down to start his practice in Del Rio, Texas, he said to me, "Mom, I'm going out into the world. I'm going to be doing this orthopedic surgery, and I'm going to have people's lives in my hands. I don't know if I can handle that." And I said, "Well, Carl, if you think you're the one that does the healing, you have a right to be scared. But if you can understand that it's your job to do this work that you've been trained to do, which is awesome. I mean, if you have a broken part of your body, you want an orthopedic surgeon, somebody who knows what they're doing, to help you deal with that aspect. But once you've done your work, you then cooperate with the physician within each patient as they do the actual healing, because all healing in my experience, and I think in the world, is based on love. If a procedure is done and the surgeon doesn't care particularly, or is just doing a technical thing, you may not get the healing that you would get if the surgeon or the physician actually spent time to listen to what the patient was saying and cooperate with that, and then turn the actual healing process over to the physician within that patient.
Yeah. So I think, Dr. Gladys, I read somewhere that you met Gandhi when you were a child. What did he teach you about love?
Another story. Okay.
Great. We love stories.
I was 10 years old. We were coming back to the States because every 7.5 years, my parents had a furlough so that they could come home and see their families and so on. So we were on the train leaving Roorkee to get to Bombay. And I was watching as we slowed down in a station. And there were huge crowd there. Well, there are always crowds in India, so that wasn't much. But in front of the crowd was a man in a white dhoti and a staff, a small man, walking, but everybody walking behind him was chanting Gandhiji, Gandhiji, Gandhi. And so he came up and the train slowed down and stopped. And he was right in my vision as my 10-year-old face was plastered on the window. And I'm looking out, seeing what's going on. And he reached down to take a flower from a little girl. And as he looked up, he looked into my eyes, and my eyes looked into his eyes. And I can't tell anybody what happened. I can't tell myself really what happened, but something happened. And I knew aspects of love that were really important. And I felt that as a 10-year-old kid. And then 30 years later, when the partition of India happened and the Hindus were killing the Mohammedans and all of that stuff, Gandhi was going around talking to his people and doing lectures and trying to bring about some kind of healing there. And my parents were doing the same thing, only they were doing it with their little medical component of things. And my parents and Gandhi became friends. And I have in my shawl, in my dresser here, a shawl that Gandhi gave my mother, a cashmere shawl, and there's a Panipat blanket that he gave my dad. It was that kind of a deep friendship in the family that understood that what we were talking about, no matter whether we were talking Urdu or Hindi or English or what, the word was love. It was essential.
You have, in your 102 years on this in this planet, you obviously have lived and seen so many changes. What do you think? What is the most profound? And yet you talk about love all the time, which I just really gets to my heart. What is the most profound thing that you've witnessed in our time, in your time?
Well, there's so many, but I can find one very important one. Excuse me. The field of medicine, when I started medical school, it was just as World War II was starting, and in 1941. And all that we were taught was about killing diseases and taking care of pain. I mean, basically, those were the two, and they still are. The whole focus in medicine is a war against disease and pain. And it never was that way with me, for I didn't understand it that way. In fact, in medical school, the dean sent me to the psychiatrist 2 different times because she thought I was unfit for the work that was being done. It was the reality in my mind, and still is, that you can use these modalities and they're wonderful, and the great progress has been made. But if they're not done with love, it doesn't reach the space that it should. I was talking to a neurologist the other day, a good friend of mine, and he said there's kind of a problem in young physicians learning about the importance of touch and love. He said he was working with a resident the other day, and they were standing outside of the patient's room, and the physician asked the resident to come in with her, and she said to him, why do I have to go into that room? And he says, what do you mean? She says, he has Alzheimer's. He doesn't understand anything I'm saying. Why do I have to go into that room? And my friend said, you don't understand. You have 2 patients in that room. You have the patient's wife and you have the patient. And both people have to understand what it is that we're talking about as we understand what they're talking about. And we have to touch them. And it was this older physician who is training younger physicians, is reaching across the barrier that the technology has given us, so that we can do it in the way in which it should be done. The technology is important. I mean, it really is awesome. We know stuff about the brain and Alzheimer's and stuff like that we never knew before. So what? So what if we don't allow the patient to understand whether they have Alzheimer's or what? It's their own understanding of being cared for or whatever, and then accept it within themselves. And if the wife couldn't begin to do that, how is this man with Alzheimer's being able to have any care, no matter how much medication he had?
Yeah. So there's a real breakdown, isn't there, as far as how medicine is being delivered right now? Do you feel that that's the case?
Well, it has been ever since World War II.
Wow.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's I've been battling. I won't even tell you the names that I've been called. Because
why don't you indulge us with 1 or 2?
Well, a witch doctor, that but that's friendly. But really, I'm joking, but it's the truth. We have not skip that. We're in the process of working with, like we've always worked with in the field of medicine, helping ourselves and the people who are coming up in the field of medicine to understand what healing is. But it's not just that. It's the people that we're working with. Right. If they don't feel heard, if they don't feel like a physician cares about them, it really doesn't matter how technologically it just doesn't.
That's true.
How about not that I'm harping on the fact that you're 102 and have had such a full life. What about sort of elder care in our world as baby boomers age? I went through that with both of my parents, and I can say that I was, I saw the caregivers being caregivers. And I think the word caregiver is perhaps a really good label to give people in working in elder care, because they have to go above and beyond. They have to connect or try to connect in some way with the patients, with the elderly that they're caring for until their last days.
Well, yes, and I think it's sad also that people in their 50s are talking about being old.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's so true, isn't it? And a matter of fact, that takes us to the point of your book, The Well-Lived Life, which I think is incredible that you wrote it a couple of years ago. And you talk about the 6 secrets to health and happiness at every age. And I think case in point of that. So I know our viewers and listeners are really wanting to know, what are the 6 secrets and why those 6?
Well, first of all, life is important. Life has to move. If you know, when it's almost too hard to put into these few words, but let me do it another way, okay? Let me give you 5 shorter ones that I can explain more clearly, all right? The 5 L's that I call them. The first one is life. Life without love doesn't really do anything. You can have a seed in the pyramid for 5,000 years and it doesn't do anything. It's got all the energy of the universe within it, but it can't do anything until love, in the form of water and sunshine, cracks that shell, and life gets born in that shell. Life and love they have to be the same. They work together, and they don't function well without the other. Like a pregnancy, the baby that's in the mother's womb and the mother are one unit for 9 months or however long. And then the baby claims its own being when it takes its first breath. But at the time, life and love have to work together in order for life to be most anything. So those are really important. The third one is laughter. Laughter without love is cruel. It's mean. Families get split apart because somebody laughed funny. It's just that kind of energy that either goes one way or the other. But with love, it's joy and happiness, and it brings things together. The fourth one is labor. Labor without love is drudgery. Oh man, I have to go to work, too many diapers. It's, you just struggle through. I'm getting old, and all of that sort of rhetoric that we put on ourselves. But labor with love is bliss. It's why you do what you do. It's why a singer sings it's why you sit in the bush. It's the
He's talking to me there.
I know.
It's that inner aspect of our being that really, that's our bliss. That's why we do it. And it's much harder to do it that way. Really, when you put the amount of time and energy in it, as if it was just the drudgery stuff which you're dragging yourself through. And the fifth one is listening. Oh. Listening without love is empty sound. It's a clanging gong. If the person you're talking to isn't listening to you, so it's just empty sound. But listening with love is understanding. When you understand what it is that the person is communicating with you, or for pity's sakes, what you're communicating with yourself, then it's worth something. Otherwise, it's just empty sound.
It's interesting. So, I spent the majority of my life interviewing people, And I found that the only way you could get someone to open up and be honest is if you showed them that you were actually interested in what they were saying. Otherwise, it's sort of like a point counterpoint sort of exchange where you say something and I'll say something, and I'll just ask something that I have written down on a piece of paper, but I just want you to answer it so I can ask the next one that I've got written down. In order to get someone to actually interact, you do need to show that you're interested in what they have to say. And I'm assuming that goes back to your medical practitioner status as well.
Absolutely. If you don't, it's just empty toast, dry toast. They're just crumbling words. But it really, absolutely, you can have the most amazing technological process or the latest medication for his latest disease, and it may not go anyplace unless you're really, I was walking down the hall of one of our hospitals here a few years back, and I stopped and I said, gee, this is a beautiful place, the art and all of that. And I realized that our hospitals are temples to the goddess disease. I mean, it stopped me. And because when we started the American Holistic Medical Association, there were a group of us who knew that there was more to the field of medicine that we had been taught and that we were working with. And so we started the American Holistic Medical Association. It took us 2 years to figure out how to spell the word holistic. The core word that we were looking for was health, healing, and holy. So it has to be with an H.
Yeah.
It's that, sure, it's the whole thing, but the core aspect of what we were talking about. And another interesting sideline about starting the American Holistic Medical Association was one time we were sitting around a table, 10 of us doctors who were working with this, and we realized that of the 10 of us, 6 of us were severely dyslexic. I was so dyslexic that I had to repeat first grade twice, But we looked at each other and we said, well, that must be why we've had to find an alternative aspect to what it is that we're doing, because somehow I learned to read. I don't know how I learned to read. And the other one said the same thing. No, ultimately, I learned to read, but it wasn't because of how the letters went together, because they never go together.
Yeah. Wow. You know what? You think about it, that is incredibly remarkable in itself, that you are in the medical field, which is all about textbooks and learning and all this, and you're dyslexic. That's incredible. So just the determination right there is amazing. You think about it.
Well, it's my bliss.
It is. And so,
Well,
Gladys, Dr. Gladys,
maybe love has something to do with it.
Yeah.
What's love got to do with it? Sorry.
It is love. Dr. Gladys, before Kevin asks his question, which we ask everyone, what inspires you today?
The fact that I'm alive today is kind of impressive to me. But the reality is that the fact that I was alive when I was 96 and I finally found my voice, and it just, the way life has unfolded day after day, minute after minute, breath after breath is absolutely awesome. I'm in awe of life, and life and love go together. So, life is pretty good.
Dr. Gladys, after all you've seen, why do you believe in people?
because I love them.
There you go. Of course.
People all over are the most lovable things around. There's some I don't like very well, and I don't spend much time about that. That's somebody else's problem. I want to spend my time with the people that I love and that I like. But sometimes you have to spend time with people that you don't like. I mean, they're people too, and they're stuck in their own spot. And that's sometimes, I like to look at it. Maybe I have a flashlight and I'm walking down this dark path, and my flashlight will take me as far as the light there, but I can't go any farther than that. But as I'm walking down this path, sometimes there's a little glimmer of light over to the right or to the left. And if I take my flashlight and shine it on that, all of a sudden their light comes back, because I truly believe that all of us, whether we know it or not, are reaching for our true humanity. Somehow, when God, whatever God is to each person, created the earth, he said to us human beings, now you guys have free will and you have choice. You're the only things in the universe that have that. So I give you dominion over the earth. And we, in our arrogance, thought he said dominance. And so we said, oh, goody. And we took on the all the stuff that we've done to the earth and our environment, because we thought we had the obligation to take care. We forgot that it was taking care of, not taking over. And so I think that's a really, really important thing. And it's the message that keeps me singing.
Well, we want you to keep singing. And Dr. Gladys, thank you so much for your time today. We're so grateful.
Thank you.
We're sending you all of our love.
Thank you. Right back at you.
Thank you.
Man, can you imagine being born in the 1920s, seeing Gandhi, but all of the automobile, the air travel, World War II, as she mentioned, all of the progress that has been made. And yet, at the end of the day, with all that progress, Dr. Gladys tells us that without love, none of it really means anything. I found that really touching.
So did I. And all you need is love. I mean, really, I think from the Beatles, from Dr. Gladys and on to the Beatles, all you need is love.
And Ringo, peace and love.
And Ringo, peace and love. Well, if you've liked this, if you have not been inspired by this episode, then I want you to shake your head. So we thank you for joining us, and please subscribe to Believe in People, because we love you to learn and hear the stories that we share. Thank you so much.
Thank you.